over the top, fantastic, unbelievable. I feel like a better person.
You cured me from cancer. You gave me my life.
Direct from the United States of America. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you the greatest single force for positive life change in America, Dr. Leonard Coldwell.
Hello, champions. Here's the Dr. Coldwell Opinion Radio Show. I am grateful that you are with me today, and I have a fantastic guest. This is the Dr. Coldwell Opinion. It is just my opinion, but I may be right. My guest today is Dr. Thomas Lodi, and he is a fascinating gentleman. He is an MD, and he is the founder of an Oasis of Healing in Arizona, Integrative Oncology Center, as well as a founder of the Institute for Integrative Oncology in Asia, which consults and certifies various cancer centers throughout Eastern and South Asia. And in addition to using integrative approaches with regards of medical interventions, he both teaches and provides training in lifestyle to modify the body's chemistry to align the mind-body-spirit continuum, such as malignancies and the other chronic diseases. I just had my German show, so I have to get back to English. I'm sorry for that. And to resolve back to healthy homeostasis. Welcome to the Dr. Coldwell Opinion, Dr. Lodi.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I hear you. Dr. Lodi, why don't you tell our listeners who you are, who you truly are as a person, and what drives you or has drove you to find the solutions you came up with to help your patients?
Sure. Well, originally I was, the last thing in the world I ever wanted to do was be a doctor. I was actually interested in spiritual things. When I was 19, I moved to India and lived there for a while, having dropped out of college. And then I was there for a couple of years, and I came back to the U.S. and got interested in psychology because I thought it was close to what I was interested in. It was, in the Western world. And so I became a clinical psychologist, and I practiced for a couple of years, about 3 years doing that, until I finally realized that I didn't understand pathology. I didn't understand if someone was physically ill, how that might affect their psychology. And I also didn't understand the medications they were on. So I decided to go to medical school so that I could round out the picture, and sort of open my other eye and be able to help people more effectively. So that's why I went to medical school. And so I kind of made my journey into this the healing profession through spirit, mind, body, and which is good because I never lost that part of it. And so that's how I am. And so the reason I work with cancer now is because the world is facing the greatest pandemic it has ever known. I mean, in the U.S. alone, 1 out of 2 men and 1 out of 3 women will get cancer in their lifetime. Around the world, it's almost 1 out of 4. We're seeing cancers that were unknown in third world populations, such as breast cancer and colon cancer. We're starting to see that in those populations, and of course it's because we're exporting the American lifestyle, which is what happens. But anyway, so that's why I do it, because there's a great need. And so I have a successful center in Arizona where we take care of people, but now I've moved and I'm opening up a couple centers here in Southeast Asia, Thailand, and so on.
That is very interesting because in the traditional Asian medicine, there is a more holistic approach to begin with to the treatment of cancer and cancerous symptoms. How do people in Asia react to your basically Western approach?
Well, that's a very good point. What's happened is the AMA, with its tentacles all over the world, has influence. For example, in Singapore, it's much more difficult to do anything like alternative or holistic medicine than it is in the U.S. now. And it's because everyone is trying to emulate the AMA. So even in Thailand, where I am. But as you said, the people, like when they say traditional medicine, what they think of is traditional Thai medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. For them, that's traditional, not what we consider traditional with the white coats and all that. So everywhere from Japan to India, whenever I give lectures and open up my availability to them, I let them know where I am in Asia. They love it. I get standing ovations. It's much, much different because these people understand the power of botanical medicine. They understand the power of living within the laws of nature.
Of course. With me is Dr. Lodi, and he is really a very different kind of helper and healer and doctor than most people would expect. He is somebody that has a truly holistic approach, and his website is an oasisofhealing.com. Dr. Lodi, when people come to you, what can they expect?
Well, first thing they might be surprised. I have two other physicians that I work with in Arizona, brilliant. They're both wonderful, loving people, and an incredible staff. So what they might be surprised at is probably a 2 to 3 hour initial consultation where we thoroughly look at everything, including how you feel about things and how your relationships are, and because you can't separate any aspect of the human experience. But we do that. We thoroughly look at everything, and then what they can expect is to change their lifestyle. We put them on a cleanse, and while we're doing that, we are targeting cancer without causing harm. I think it'd be helpful if I just gave you the 3 aspects to our program. We teach people to stop making cancer. Because if you don't stop making cancer, it doesn't matter how good anyone is at getting rid of it, it'll be back. And we do that through lifestyle changes, through the biochemistry. And because you imagine, if a woman has a lump in her breast or a man has a nodule on his prostate, and it never grows and it never spreads, they'll live a normal life. So the real question when they sit in front of us is not, how do I get rid of this? But the real question is, how do I stop making it? That's the real question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So that's number 1. And number 2, the second part is we target and eliminate the cancer without causing harm. And we do that through what I can explain later as metabolic therapies. And they're extremely effective. We can eliminate almost all cancers that way. And the third thing is to enhance the immune system, because guess what? There is a cure for cancer. It's called a healthy immune system. So if you do all 3 of those, you change your biochemistry so that your body's no longer producing cancer, you target and eliminate what's there without harm, and you enhance the immune system, you've got an excellent chance at recovering. Even advanced stage 4s are doing well.
Yeah, there's no such thing as an incurable disease. There are only incurable people. But the main thing is really, now I'm seeing the questions coming in here, is what in your opinion causes cancer in the first place?
Well, I think it's pretty well clear now that there are a multitude of factors that contribute. Most of them involve toxins, being overwhelmed with toxins. And these toxins, what they do is they disrupt the most vulnerable part of the cell, which are called mitochondria. Those are the little parts of the cell that make the energy. They take oxygen and glucose, and they produce ATP, which is energy. So, and as you know, each cell needs about 1 billion ATP at any second to run all of its requirements, take care of all of its enzymatic requirements. And so that you have to keep up that work. And when oxygen burns glucose, it's very efficient. 1 molecule of glucose makes 38 ATPs. And so, but because there's oxygen involved, it's sort of on a biochemical perspective flammable. So these little organelles are very vulnerable to attack. And so if you have a chronically toxic system, it affects those. We've known this since 1931 when Dr. Otto Warburg was awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine for his breakthrough that cancer is a failure of cellular respiration, a failure of oxygen utilization. So we know this. And so that's what happens. And now the interesting thing is the way it works is that once the cell's metabolic requirements are different now, what happens is it loses the ability to use oxygen because those mitochondria are weak. And so it signals the nucleus and the DNA to change its genetic expression and produce new types of enzymes that support a chronic fermentative metabolism, because fermentation is the fail-safe mode of energy production when you lose the mitochondria. And so these genes that get turned on in response are what we call oncogenes. So it's not that the oncogenes are causing it, it's that they are responding to the new metabolic requirement. And this is well established in the scientific literature. They take the nucleus of a cancer cell, they put it into a healthy cytoplasm, the cell becomes healthy. They take the nucleus of a healthy cell and they put it into a cancer cytoplasm and it becomes cancer. So we know it's a metabolically driven process, not a DNA-driven process. And so it comes down to epigenetics, which is the environment around the cell, which is everything you eat, drink, breathe, and don't eliminate.
As you say, Otto Warburg and Max Planck both got a Nobel Prize in medicine for proving cancer cannot exist in an alkaline, oxygen-rich environment. And we know this since the early 1900s, and it is really sad that it took our science 100 years to even start utilizing this information that you are using, obviously, in your hospitals and clinics. And what is your success rate, Dr. Lodi?
Well, we're in the middle of tracking it, but at this point, up around 61% with stage 4. And if you know that the worldwide prognosis, worldwide, and this is the U.S. and Australia, the study that was printed in 2004 in the Journal of American Medical Association showed that with stage 4 patients, less than 3% were alive at 5 years, which means more than 97% were not alive at 5 years. And this is printed in JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association. So up near around 61% with stage 4 cancers is unbelievably significant.
Yeah, Dr. Gary Null has proven that medical profession is the number one cause of death in the Western so-called civilized world, and I think because so many people are misled and not really looking at the real cause and the real solutions, that's where the problem is. We are going to head for the very first break. It's a 5-minute break, and then we have only a short segment of 5 minutes. And the Dr. Coldwell Opinion Radio Show. I'm your host, Dr. Leonard Coldwell, or better known as Dr. C. With me is Dr. Thomas Lodi, and he is live with me from Thailand, and we are talking about his unique ways of treating cancer. Dr. Lodi, I'm getting a huge amount of emails in here, people asking what is your treatment or what is your opinion on patients that already have the traditional medical treatment of chemo, radiation, and surgery.
Okay, I think when they say treatments, they're referring to it's in the second part of our program is how do we target and eliminate the cancer without harm, or at least minimizing the harm. And these metabolic therapies involve using therapies that require the cancer cell to do something that it can't. For example, we now know, and this is proven by the National Institutes of Health. They did a series of studies from 2004 to about 2009, and they proved that when you give high doses of intravenous vitamin C, it produces peroxides in the tissues. Healthy cells have an enzyme called catalase, which easily converts that to water and oxygen, which is good for it. Cancer cells no longer have catalase, so they get killed by it. So it's the perfect chemo, kills the bad guy, good for the good guy. So now they're doing actually a clinical trial at the University of Kansas with vitamin C, and soon it's no longer going to be considered alternative. I think some insurance companies are even paying for it. But that's an example of one of the metabolic therapies. There's other ones that they're all well known: B17, sodium selenite, artesunate, just almost anyone any good alternative integrative cancer center will use. IV curcumin. There's a variety of things we use. When we have really dire situations, we will use chemo, but low-dose chemo with insulin. It's called insulin-potentiated chemotherapy. And again, that's you give insulin to a person who's in a fasting state, and cancer cells we know have more insulin receptors, so they grab it quicker and they open their doors quicker. And there's a 5-minute window approximately where the cancer cells are wide open, the healthy cells are not, where you administer a 10% dose of chemo, and it goes right into the cancer cell, and you avoid losing your hair, you avoid losing your lunch, etc. So, we don't do that with everyone, but anyone who obviously needs that, it's helpful. We do it for as short a time as possible. We use all the conventional chemos when we do that, whatever's required for that particular type of cancer. And So those are the therapies that we use. But if someone has already had conventional chemo and radiation, then by all means, that's mostly what we used to get. Now people are finding out earlier on in the course not to go that route. But in the beginning, I'd say the first 8 to 9 years, that's all we ever saw were people who just came crawling in, basically, because they were beaten up so badly. It just takes a little bit longer. That's all.
So basically, that gives hope to patients that already had the so-called traditional treatment, and this is a really good thing. And do you do any kind of psychosomatic, psychological, some kind of life consulting or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely, because that's a major component of the whole process of cancer. And if we don't do that, if we don't address that, then we're going to see people back to living their old lifestyle within 9 to 12 months. That's just how it happens. It's even if they come to what we do when we change lifestyle, we have something called the School of Life. And the School of Life is actually a course that we teach while you're there. It's part of it, where you learn about your body, what it's made of, and what it needs, and where do you find what it needs, and all that. What time should we go to sleep? We're humans. Well, it turns out we're diurnal. We're not nocturnal. And when we go to sleep early, what happens? Wow, it's amazing. The physiology, all of the hormones, etc. Anyway, so we teach people how to live because we unfortunately didn't learn that part in school. And it's called the School of Life. So we have that, and while we're doing that, we're teaching people how to prepare foods so that when they go back home, they'll know how to prepare food. And we teach them how to do their enemas and everything to take care of themselves. Because if we don't teach people how to do this, then we're just collecting money. We don't teach people how to stop making cancer, then we're no different than the guy in the hospital. We're a little gentler and nicer, but we're still looking for repeat business. We don't want repeat business. Our goal is that everyone that comes to us never needs to see another doctor the rest of their life.
That's wonderful.
So anyway,
that's wonderful.
As part of it, it's the psychosomatic, psychosocial, psychospiritual thing, our people's relationships. For example, if you're lying to someone significant in your life, it turns into emotional pus. It will hurt you. And so you've got to just kind of, anyway, we work on that. We have people to help you. We teach yoga and meditation and Tai Chi and all other kinds of, and physical exercise, depending on someone's predilection, whatever they're looking for. So we touch everything, physical, mental, spiritual, and psychological.
Listening to the Dr. Coldwell Opinion Radio Show. It is just my opinion, but I may be right. With me is Dr. Thomas Lodi, and he is live from Thailand. And it's, as I learned, 2:30 in the morning where you are. Thanks so much for staying up or getting back up. Dr. Lodi, obviously some listeners went through your website and they are asking, what is the benefit of an infrared sauna in your treatment?
Well, infrared saunas, they penetrate much deeper than a regular normal sauna, a steam or dry saunas. They penetrate much deeper, and they are able to pull out toxins. I'll give you an example. I had a woman come to our clinic 2 years ago who had gone through conventional chemo, but she hadn't had chemo for a year. And she did the sauna, and afterwards, when she dried off, the towel smelled like the chemo. So that's just to show you how it's a very potent, it goes in deep, and you can actually get a higher temperature, a higher core temperature, without feeling as uncomfortable as you would with a dry or steam sauna.
Yeah, it really looks like you're making it very comfortable for your patients. And I'm seeing for the first time really in America, physical lymph drainage. What kind of effect has this? I mean, most of our patients know we have 4 times more lymph liquid than blood, but very often they don't understand, or it makes no sense for them, because the mainstream medical suggestions are not to do lymph drainage, manual lymph drainage, because it spreads, in their opinion, the cancer throughout, the cancerous cells throughout the entire body. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I know. I've never really understood that thinking. It's like, it doesn't make sense. Here's the perfect metaphor. if you're hiking in the woods and you come upon a rapidly flowing river and you're thirsty, you will readily drink out of it. If down the road a little bit, 30 minutes later, you find that this has slowed down and it's more like a pond, you won't drink out of it. Well, that's exactly what happens. The lymphatic vessels and the veins are what drain all the tissues of the body. So if you look at that and you realize, well, there's only one system feeding the tissues, which is the arterial system, but there's two systems draining it, so I guess drainage might be a little more important according to nature, right? So, and as you said, four times more lymphatic vessels. Well, the lymphatics are very important. They not only serve as a drainage, but they also take little bits of a survey of what's going on in the tissues and bring it to the lymph nodes, who then decide on an immunological response to take care of whatever problems are there. So this flow is very important. If you block this flow, let's say you've got breast cancer and you've got some lymph nodes that are involved in your armpit, your axilla. If you don't do anything, you say, okay, don't move your arm, don't get any kind of exercise, don't do any lymphatic drainage or anything like that, and it becomes stagnant, what happens is whatever cancer cells are in there, they're going to set up camp and just grow and grow and grow and grow. It becomes like a pond. It festers. What you want to do is get that flow, because nature has the wisdom that we could never comprehend. It will take all that stuff, do appropriately what it needs to with all the little lymph nodes, which are like little CIA headquarters. They'll decide what to do, and the rest of it will come up and dump right through into the venous system and be eliminated. That's what the body, if you don't eliminate it, it's going to grow sideways. It's crazy thinking.
Yeah, absolutely, and I never understood this. Most of all, there's another thing that I always hear from cancer patients saying that their doctor told them to not go into the sun. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, they're even telling normal people not to go in the sun. So, I mean, here it is. The source of all life in our galaxy is now dangerous. Well, of course it's dangerous. Too much oxygen is dangerous. I mean, we need 21% oxygen in our atmosphere. If we breathe 100% oxygen for a month straight, we're going to have emphysema. So, yeah, too much of anything, too much water, and you'll die. If you drink 4 or 5 gallons a day, you won't be around too long. So we need what we need in the amount that we need, nothing more, nothing less. But as far as the sun is the way we produce natural vitamin D. And one of the things that vitamin D does is it turns off cancer cells. It actually, if it finds a newly turned cancer cell, it'll turn it back into being a healthy cell. That's very important. It also does many, many other things in terms of the alkalinity of the blood, by dealing with the calcium absorption, and many, many other things. So
there's no production of macrophage activating factor if there's no vitamin D, which most people don't really understand. I give historically my patients 200,000 IUs of vitamin D daily. But the other thing is really what is your, and I'm seeing this, people are asking more practical use, what is your suggested diet for cancer patients?
Yeah, that's to stop making cancer. Well, the suggested diet is to eat the human diet. When we look at humans, here's the problem with humans. We have stepped out of nature. We don't think we're part of nature, which is an incredible, insane delusion. So we don't think we're part of nature, but the problem is we fall at 32 feet per second squared, just like elephants. So we are actually subject to the natural laws, even if we don't know it or like it. But anyway, so since we no longer know, we no longer have access to our instinct, because we have been enculturated since the age of 1, we have to look at our brothers and cousins in the natural world. And when we look in the natural world, we find out that we're primates. We are part of a group called hominids, which is chimpanzees, orangutans, gorillas, and humans. Okay, tailless apes. So what do they eat? Well, they eat vegetables, plants, fruits, nuts, seeds, and of course they pick some insects off each other and nibble on those. But and chimps have been known to eat flesh, but Jane Goodall, who did her PhD work in that, noted that chimps don't eat any more than 3% of their diet of flesh foods, and when they do, it's not the amount of energy required to obtain it does not equal the amount of energy that, is far in excess of the amount of energy that it derives from it, which shows prove to her that it was a social thing. It was a macho thing. They beat their chest, and it's involved with the war. It has nothing to do with nutrition. So in general, primates are vegan, are vegetarian. They don't eat those sorts of things. They might, of course, if a chimp comes upon a quail egg, it'll probably eat the quail egg. So they're not, 100% vegan, but they're definitely like plants. If you take an 18-month-old baby and you put a baby in a playpen with animals and apples, they're going to eat the apple. They're not going to grab the animal and eat it. That's our instinct. So anyway, so we put people on a vegan diet. We also make sure it's raw. We do green juice, usually a green juice feast, 4 or 5 quarts a day, colon hydrotherapy. We balance hormones, put people to bed early, and work on their spiritual and psychological things. We do all of it together. You can't do any one part of it because it all works together. But that's the kind of diet, and we know no one's going to do that for the rest of their lives, okay, which they'll now have a longer life than they would have. But once we have accomplished the goal of resetting the biochemistry, which takes 9 to 12 months, then you can go to an 80-20 diet or a 70-30, where you go back, because you've got to be realistic. None of us are going to change 100%. We need to eat the way some of the stuff we used to eat. We just need to do that, and psychologically, it's actually good for us to do that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's most of all, people have to have quality of life. Without quality of life, they don't see a reason for living anymore, and they die anyway. And as Dr. Carl Simon with his huge cancer clinic in Fort Worth, Texas, stated that many patients gave themselves a suicide command 18 to 26 months before the cancer basically was diagnosed, like, I don't want to live like this anymore, after losing a child to death or a divorce after 30 years or their job and so on. Helplessness and hopelessness very often leads to these suicide commands. Do you have any kind of experience like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's, believe me, you just hit on something that's very, very important. It's one thing when what we do, what I do is by reminding people of the truth. You cut your finger, it's going to heal. You have 100 trillion cells. You have that are completely synchronized. You have new skin every 6 weeks. New rods and cones in your retinas every 48 hours. New lining to your colon every 3 days. You have a new liver every 6 months. So your body is not something that happened to you. Your body is a happening. It's like a flame. It's a flow of gases. So you're not stuck with anything. Once people realize that truth, they're empowered. Oh yeah, I guess I don't have to keep having cancer. So anyway, and so I see myself as a purveyor of hope. But in the conventional world, it's the opposite. I consider what they do in hospitals as sorcery. They actually tell people you're going to be dead in 6 months, and people take that and they die on cue. It's a tragedy, but it's sorcery. And so one of the major things I need to do when I see people is to undo that sorcery. And I can only do that with the truth, reminding people that they are in a dynamic, incredible thing called an earth suit that is self-replicating and heals. You cut it, it'll heal. So, yeah, and that's true. That's very important. When I see a person give up, that's one of the requirements for coming to our center. You can't drag someone in and say, look, she doesn't really want to live, but would you help her? We won't be able to because she needs to. We'll do what I do then is I then do my I give her the hope. I remind her of the incredible divine earth suit that she's living in. So.
Yeah, it is very important that you point this out because, I have the highest cancer cure rate in the world, a proven cancer cure rate of 92.3%. My book, The Only Answer to Cancer, has been sold 57 million times in 9 languages, and my videos have been watched 1.4 billion times. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I cured provenly 35,000 cancer patients in a government hospital in Germany before and after. But the main thing is I know 400 different natural cures for cancerous symptoms, but I always treated the relatives of the patient with the patient. What is your thinking on that one?
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. If the person goes back into the same family dynamic, it's not going to work. because people don't exist in isolation. They exist in a context. They exist in a family. It's the same thing with dietary changes. If people come in and they learn to change their diet and they go back and everyone else is eating differently, then it won't last. So we encourage and actually require that family members come, learn to eat this way, go through the school of life with them, and go through these changes.
Fantastic. I love Dr. Coldwell Opinion. It's a very interesting day today. On my German show, before this show, I just had Dr. Thomas Höhn, the medical doctor with the highest cancer cure rate in Europe, on the Dr. Coldwell Meinung, the German version of the Dr. Coldwell Opinion. Now I have a very interesting doctor here, Dr. Thomas Lodi, and his approach is very, very great. And there are people that need a medical doctor, and they just don't trust a person that's not necessarily a licensed medical doctor. And he is using both worlds, the natural way of healing and, if needed, the medical way of healing. And it works for him. I'm completely against it, as you guys all know, but that doesn't really mean that one is right or wrong, because Dr. Lodi is a very smart person. He has very good things to say. His website is great. Dr. Lodi, there is, can you give our listeners, please, your website, your email address, phone number, if you like, and what your future plans are?
Sure, yes. Of course, our website is our name, anoasisofhealing.com, but we've made it easier. Just go to stopmakingcancer.com and it will redirect you, because that's really what we're all about. Stopmakingcancer.com, because that's really what we're all about, more than anything. In fact, if I get people on the phone who are considering coming, if I can inspire them long distance to change their life. For example, I have found several people, 42-day water fast, they don't need us. It's gone. I mean, colon cancer spread to the liver was gone. Anyway, I won't go into that right now, but stopmakingcancer.com. And our phone number is 480-834-5414. And we're located in Arizona, and the main reason I moved to Arizona about 11 years ago from New York was I'm still licensed in New York. But the reason why I moved to Arizona was because if you're an MD and you know homeopathy, you can get licenses under the homeopathic board, and they're a lot more lenient. So when hospitals, make a complaint to the medical board that I'm giving IV vitamin C, my board says, well, that's good, instead of, disciplining me.
Yeah, that's really good. Dr. Lodi, what are your future plans? What are you going to do with your life? Do you have a book or anything, or are you thinking publishing a book that we can promote?
Yeah, no, I actually am in the middle of, I'm in the last chapter of it, and it's being edited, so I don't really even have a title for it. The original title was going to be Grab a Rat and Milk It, but I may be changing.
You're good with names.
But I may be changing that. But in any case, my plans are to keep Arizona going strong. I would love to open an East Coast center, because we really need one there. And I'm expanding throughout Asia and Europe, reaching into Europe. But right now we're in Thailand. We've got 2 great centers in Thailand.
That's fantastic. Are you still doing research or and trying to develop new ways, or are you going to be sticking with your system the way it is right now?
No, I'm never satisfied with the interventional therapies we do. I'm always looking. The IPT we've almost eliminated completely. We're doing with our immune enhancement. We've got some fantastic things. We're able to take out 200 cc's of blood and have the T cells and natural killer cells extracted, multiplied, because they get inactivated by the immune system, just as the macrophages do. And we take them out, and then we give the people we give them a fever or inject IL-2, which stimulates an acute inflammatory reaction. Then you give GC-MOF. It'll wake up macrophages in the right condition when they're in the TH1 phase, MH1 phase. We want them in that phase. We don't want them to be proliferative. So then we do that, and then we give the T cells, and then we give the natural killer cells. and basically sequentially we turn back on the immune system. It works very good. So yes, I'm totally open to it. We're using hyperthermia. We're doing everything new. The only thing will never change is dietary things, because we are primates. And I know people don't like to hear that. They love to eat dog food. I mean, most people are really, dog food is on the dinner table at most houses I see. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, they're eating the worms and the maggots at McDonald's, and they're loving it, obviously. Dr. Lodi, it was a fantastic interview. Thank you so much. We're at the end of the show. When your book is out or you have a new center open, please contact us and we have you back on and we can talk about it. Thank you so much for the great interview.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.